Hello and welcome to we're at episode 10 of Mediocre Military Scale Modeling, and today we're going to look at another Takom kit. Takom, one of my favorite companies for military scale models, and today we're looking at a French light tank, the AMX-13, and specifically the AMX-13 105. Now the AMX-13 series, as I said, were a series of French light tanks. I believe the first one fielded, there were many variations. I believe the first one had a 75mm gun, but don't quote me on that. Later on it was upgunned to a 90mm, and then finally 105mm, this guy here, which I believe has mounted the most powerful cannon. There were also other weird variations. One of them actually had large missiles mounted on the side of it. So various different versions. These are widely exported. I believe these were developed in the 50s. They were either fielded in the late 50s or in the 60s, I believe, the initial AMX-13. But very widespread, widely exported, widely used French light tank. So the one we are looking at today, this is a Takom kit, 1/35 scale, and this is the AMX-13 105. So it fielded a large, for the tank size, 105mm cannon. The turret here, which makes the AMX series different than a lot of other tanks, is it uses an oscillating turret here, so greater range of movement, but unfortunately you can't completely seal it, so you can't make these tanks like impervious to, say, like radiation. You can't make it what NBC, nuclear, biological, chemical resistant, because you can't completely airtight seal the turret because of the design. But so there's the downside to it. I think it might be a little bit more complex to put these things together, but you do get greater movement with the turret. There's probably some other advantages as well. But anyways, interestingly, the 105, the most powerful cannon version, the French Army did not accept. It had some issues with it. Apparently, after repeated firings, it could cause some structural damage and issues. So the French Army passed up on this variant of the AMX-13, but a few other countries actually bought this and it was exported to. I believe only two, though. So the two countries that this was exported to were the Dutch, first of all, the Netherlands, and then, interestingly enough, Argentina also bought a number of these AMX-13 105s. The Takom kit lets you make the Dutch Army version, or there's two versions of the Argentine version you can make, and I did the one for the Argentine Army. It's also the one here on the cover art. So overall, this is a pretty good kit. I did have some minor issues here. I'll zoom in. So if you could see, like right here, I tried to cover it up and use some putty. This wasn't the kit's fault, of course. This was my fault. I just had some issues putting it together in some parts, but nothing too bad. I think overall the kit went together pretty well. I could have done the antennas a little better. That's always, I never really do the antennas that well. I think my biggest difficulty was the paint scheme. And I think the paint scheme's pretty close. If you look at the cover art here, it is sort of like brown and light green. And I used these were the recommended paints, and this is what I used. I used Ammo MIG. This is sand brown right here. And then I used the Ammo MIG light green. And these are the colors that the kit recommends to use for this dual color, camo color scheme. But when I first applied it, I really hated it. It just looked very pastel, Easter egg-ish to me. And I did not like it at all. I thought it looked really weird. I was questioning if I had the right paints. But after I went over it with like a filter, like a dark brown filter, and I did some weathering, and I tried to muddy it up, and it kind of really toned it down, and it really helped. I'm still not crazy about, maybe it's just me, maybe I just don't like this camo scheme. It just seems too light and pastel to me, especially the green. It just seems strange. But it does look a lot better after I toned it down with the filters and weathering of like dark and light browns. It almost kind of looks like it has a dusting over it or a caking of some like dirt and mud, which really, like I said, helps tone down the strange sort of pastel color scheme here. So there is the other color scheme, though, is a mono color. I forget, I think it might be some kind of olive drab or something, so you don't have to go with this color scheme. I thought it was the most interesting, but once I did it, I didn't necessarily love it. Not a lot of decals for this tank. You have one here on each side, but other than that, that might be the only decal, at least for this version. So it does sort of end up looking very, very kind of plain. There's not a whole lot on here where you could add a whole lot of, you know, interesting color variations. You know, you've got the tools, you've got the gun up here for gunmetal, but I don't know, not as much you can do with it as some other kits I've put together. I suppose if you wanted, you could put some light stowage on it or something like that. Overall, though, it is an interesting tank. It's a little bit different from, you know, the Panzers and the Shermans and the T-34s and stuff like that. The AMX-13 series are interesting looking. This kit, I think there was one issue with it. I believe they said the muzzle brake here was a little bit oversized. It's a little larger. The scale is a little bit off, I believe, but it's not very noticeable, at least I don't think. So overall, the kit itself is pretty good, but I think I did an okay job on it. So here at Mediocre Military Modeling, we have three tiers of how well I did. My worst is a artistically inclined 5th grader could have done better. The second tier, middle of the road, is that good old college try. And then my best score I can give myself is certified mediocre. And I'm going to give this one kind of a middle of the road. I think I gave this one that good old college try. It looks okay, but even with the two-tone camo scheme, it looks just kind of uninteresting. I did make some mess-ups, like right here you can see, but it's not super noticeable. So overall, it's okay. It's just maybe a little bit boring and plain. But the AMX-13 itself is kind of an interesting tank to put together. I might one day, Takom has a number of the different variations of this tank, so I might do like an earlier one, maybe. I also messed up like the track, like right here. You might not be able to see it, but it doesn't look like great. It doesn't line up like 100% perfectly, so I think I did okay with this. It's passable. There's no egregious errors or issues I ran into with it, but I don't know. I'm not crazy about that weird sand brown, very, very light green camo pattern. It just seems too light to me. It just seems weird, even though here it is looking pretty darn close to what the box art is right there. So I don't know. That good old college try. I think it's okay. It's okay on the shelf. I'm not too embarrassed of it. So, not like the Zero I made in our last episode 9. That one is not a great job by me. Anyways, thank you for watching this video. We'll see you in the next episode. And thank you again. Leave your comments, of course, in the comments below.